Pip, tally-ho, Joolz Guides here, in which I wander around London and tell you fascinating facts. And today we're in St Giles, and it's called St Giles after the leper colony that was founded here in 1117 by Queen Matilda. And St Giles is the patron saint of lepers, cripples and outcasts.
Yeah. And I'll just try and follow you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very popular with cab drivers. This road that we're on here, actually, St Giles High Street, this is an old Roman road, and it's quite unusual for a Roman road because most Roman roads are very straight, but it's kind of the continuation of Oxford Street, really. But because that area over there was all marshland, the Romans just said, oh, look, sod that, let's just like take the road around and down there. But anyway, so loads of different roads met here, and you know, sometimes you see old milestones, like there's one in Highgate, at the top of Highgate West Hill, I think, just outside Wittenhurst, and it says something like 5 miles to St Giles Circus. A lot of places were measured from here, like milestones and stuff. Anyway, back in 1417, Sir John Oldcastle, who was a friend of King Henry V, he's the one who inspired Shakespeare's character Falstaff. Anyway, he was guilty of heresy and he was burnt alive here. And he cursed the king and he cursed the executioner, but he also cursed the land that he was executed on. So it's not surprising, really, that in later years, this has had a reputation for some pretty bad luck. I mean, this area over here used to be a warren of run-down slums known as the Rookery because of the people packed in like roosting birds. And John Keats described it as a place where misery clings to misery for little warmth, and want and disease lie down side by side and groan together. Filth infested the air. But eventually, that all got knocked down in order to build New Oxford Street over there. This is actually Matilda Apartments, named after Queen Matilda, you know, who founded the colony. But these are designed, I think, by Renzo Piano, the guy who did the Shard. And in the 60s, they built this eyesore over here, which is the Centre Point Tower. Further evidence of the bad luck of this area is that it's now really overcast. I filmed the other day when it was beautiful and sunny, so I can cut to some nice sunny shots. Now, I heard that Centre Point was built as a kind of bunker during the Cold War to look after civil servants in case of a nuclear attack or something. But because of advances in weaponry and stuff, it kind of rendered it obsolete.
Wasn't there a snooker hall underneath it?
Yes. Yes, it was, and I think that must have been part of the bunkers.
Yeah.
I never played in that snooker hall,
No,
but it was.
me neither.
But anyway, in the end, it just remained empty for decades. Anyway, that's what some bloke told me down the pub. So what's nice is that if you watch my music tour of Soho, I go down Denmark Street here, and I talk all about the music. They were doing loads of work then, there was scaffolding up, and now they've taken it down. You can see all the beautiful old 17th century houses that were built. I think it's possibly the only street in London where you've got these 17th century houses on both sides of the street, in fact. I mean, it's named after the Prince of Denmark, who was married to Queen Anne, if you care. But what I find interesting about it is this place here. This used to be a job centre. I remember when it was a job centre. And back in the 1980s, was it? Dennis Nielsen, the famous serial killer, he used to work here. And they had a Christmas party, and he prepared the Christmas meal. And he used a pot from his house that he had used for boiling his victims' heads. I mean, I know, it's really grim. God. But yeah, look, the church over here, St Giles in the Fields. Now, it's called St Giles in the Fields to distinguish it from St Giles in the City, because this was all like just in the marshes. This is based on The Last Judgment by Michelangelo. I think it's part of the Sistine Chapel, but the original one is inside the church. You can actually see, let's go and have a look at the original one, because this is just a stone replica, but they've got the original one from, what, 1687 or something? It's made out of wood. Beautiful, actually, carved inside there. Pretty well preserved for 1687, isn't it?
That's not that far after the actual painting was made, is it? I mean, the painting was like only less than 100 years before.
Well, this fella, he's actually buried out in the churchyard there, but they've rescued his tombstone. Okay, I thought you'd say that.
Yeah, sorry. We need to
Round the back, so what I wanted to show you was inside the church there, they've got the tombstone, which was originally out here. This is where the plague pits were. So the plague started in St Giles, and many people who died in the plague were buried here in this churchyard, along with people who were executed at the kind of gallows that was here for a while. But also, inside the church, what I was trying to show you was the tombstone of Richard Penderell. Richard Penderell was the guy who helped King Charles II after the Battle of Worcester, and he helped him hide in an oak tree. So there's a pub called the Penderell Oak, actually. It's named after Richard Penderell. And one of these tombs here, I don't know which one it is, there he is. In fact, it is this one. This is the grave of Richard Penderell. So we've got him to thank for the restoration, I suppose, and having theatres again and restoring the monarchy, I suppose. I mean, had it not been for him, King Charles II would have been killed, and maybe they wouldn't have brought back theatres like he did. Take notice of this sign. They rebuilt this pub. This has been here definitely since the 18th century, but then they rebuilt it in Victorian times. Look, you can see an old sign for a French garage up there. I love those old signs.
See it, yeah.
Ouvert jour et nuit, open day and night apparently. But anyway, this is one of the pubs that offered what they called the St Giles Bowl. When you were being transported, so they stopped after, I think they stopped doing the executions here. They moved them up to Tyburn Gallows, which is where Marble Arch is today. And when you were being transferred from Newgate Prison on a wagon, they'd take you all the way up here, which is this old Roman road that I was talking about, and they'd take you all the way up Oxford Street down to be executed. But what they'd do is they'd stop at one of these pubs and buy you one last merciful pint of ale. One of my favourite characters, Jack Sheppard, he took the St Giles Bowl here. Now, Jack Sheppard was a notorious 18th century thief and prison escapee. He actually escaped 4 times before they finally caught up with him, and then he was to be executed, and they brought him along here. He took the St Giles Bowl, but he only drank half of it, and he said, give the rest to Jonathan Wild, who was this thief-taker general, the duplicitous weasel who dobbed him in. And actually, Jack Sheppard was very much loved, and all these daring feats of escape really got into the public consciousness, and they all thought he was a real hero. The king even commissioned a portrait of him, so everyone knew what he looked like. He was easily found, and Daniel Defoe wrote his autobiography for him, and they sold it on the day of his execution as he came down here. So anyway, lovely pub this. So after you'd taken this last merciful drink, sometimes they'd say, oh, do you want another drink? And then they'd have to say to them, well, no, he can't have another drink. He's on the wagon. And so that's where the expression comes from, to say he's on the wagon, meaning I've given up drink. So you've got to get back on the wagon, your feet wouldn't touch the ground again, you're going to be hanged at Tyburn.
That lamp's off the wagon. The lamp, the street lamp, looks like it's just come out of the pub, completely wasted. It's just...
Yeah, it's a drunk street lamp. You've got an obsession with street. What does it say out there? Elms Leicesters. That's
painting rooms and stores.
Yeah, that's what this door is for. They painted scenery for the West End Theatre, so that's why I've got such a massive door there. Probably been transferred into offices now, like a lot of other things. I mean, this side, I think this used to be Cross and Blackwell Pickle Factory. Oh, really? Yeah, and they provided work. A lot of people used to work in this area, worked here in the pickle factory. He was a homeless guy who lived around here. I think he was very well liked. Yeah, it's only once you get to a certain age you start trying to crack that joke. Poor old Bill Posters, what did he ever do? My dad always used to say that, thinking it was hilarious. And now I've started doing it, now that I'm a certain age. And it just totally
crying with laughter.
Now in 1929, William and Gilbert Foyle moved their bookshop. Well, it wasn't actually here because They actually moved it to that building behind there. That's when I was young. It was over there where that pink building is. Then in the 1930s, one of their daughters, called Christina, she actually ended up sending a telegram to Hitler because he was burning books. That famous book burning exercise. And she wrote a cable to him saying, "Thank you." She wrote, "Mr. Hitler, stop. Please stop burning books, stop. I will give you a good price, stop. Please, 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 stop." So I can't help quoting Blackadder. If loving Blackadder is wrong, I don't want to be right. Goose-stepping morons like yourself should try reading books instead of burning them. So yeah, now that Foyles now has moved to here. This actually used to be the St. Martin's School of Art. As you will see in my Soho music tour, where the Sex Pistols played their first gig, accompanied by Bazooka Joe with Adam Ant on the bass, I think he played. Do you remember when Foyles was there? And it was really difficult to find a book because they were very old-fashioned. They tried to categorise everything by publisher instead of by author. So you wanted a book, you have to go all over the place. They really need experts in there. And after a while, they started employing these people who had very classical names. So you'd have someone called Hector working there, or someone called Achilles. And on one occasion, someone went in there and they were looking for a book by James Joyce, and they said, "Oh, I'm trying to find Ulysses," and they said, "Oh no, he's gone out to lunch." She came from Greece, she had a thirst for knowledge. She studied art at St. Martin's College, that's where I caught her eye. That's what he's talking about in the Pulp song. She studied art at St. Martin's College, she studied there, where Foyles has now moved to. Now look, just opposite there is the Phoenix Theatre. Look at this, beautiful, isn't it? So you see those four columns all twisted. This is a typical style of Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, who designed the telephone box and the Battersea Power Station and all that stuff. Obviously, loads of famous people have performed there. But what I really like is next door at the Phoenix Artists Club. Have you ever been in here, Simon? Oh, this is, you know, I used to be a member here, and it used to be the case that you had to be an actor to go in, and you kind of still are supposed to be. And I always used to manage to blag my way in. Anyway, it's an excellent place to go for a drink after hours. Oh, I used to come in here back in the day. It's terrific. Let's see who's around. Oh, there's Colin over there. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. I'm busy doing my accounts. How boring is that?
Oh, what?
I know.
The life of an artiste.
How are you?
I'm okay. Oh, terrific. I used to be a member here.
Well, you're still a member. If you have a theatre ticket, if you've been to the cinema, or if you've been a member before, you can come in whenever you like. We give out memberships to all of the people in the West End, front of house, backstage, cinema workers, whatever, yeah.
Can anyone come in, or?
Yes. So we have a very weird licence here. The licence is that anyone that's been to a show or bought a ticket to the West End can come in as a one-day member, or you can come in before 9 o'clock. It's membership after 9 o'clock, but we're not very strict, to tell you the truth. If you work in the West End or you've done a show or been out filming, we're more than happy.
I admit that in the past I've been a nest. They weren't kidding when they called me, well, a witch.
Years ago, 1930, the Phoenix Theatre, this was the rehearsal room, so you had Laurence Olivier do Private Lives here, rehearse. In 1988, it turned to the Phoenix Artists Club. Most people in the industry know this as Shuts, because it never shut, because it used to be called Shuttleworth. So, like the Ian McCallans or anyone that's been in the West End says, you know, I'm going down Shuts.
What's happened to me is that during the lockdown, I've forgotten all my kind of cool places to go.
We're a bit of a hidden gem, not many people know about us, so it's really nice that you've come in. But if you come down here, we've got like shows every night, we've got signed posters, we've had all sorts of stars like yourself.
But I don't deserve to lose my freedom in this way. You
Got all the casts of, you know, things like Frozen come down and Les Mis comes down.
Yeah.
Tonight is open mic, and a lot of the guys that were in shows sing there, and a lot of our guys from open mic go on to sing in the West End. A bit of a late night drinking joint. The famous thing about the Phoenix is if you can remember getting out of the place, you haven't had a good enough night.
I know her, even if I met her.
Thanks, Colin. See you later.
See you later. Thanks for dropping by.
No problem. Kanadaya. I've never eaten there, but that must be a very good ramen bar because it's always got a massive line of Japanese people queuing up to get in. So I always figure that must be a good sign. Likewise, just over the road there, this is a Shaftesbury Avenue we're coming up to now, and they've got the first Punjabi restaurant in London. But I saw some Indian people eating in there, so I always figure that must be a good sign. You know, if it's just full of Brits, then you know you're not kind of so sure. Now, sometime in the late 1600s, the street became famous for its lace and finely embroidered coats. But before long, it did deteriorate. And in the end, you just had all these people occupying these basements and stuff. And outside all these houses and shops, you'd have boots and shoes, which people would bring them and they'd repair them. Charles Dickens describes these people who worked in these underground kind of places as like troglodytes or something, coming up to breathe like otters for air. And what I like is this place here, the Freud's. This gives a good idea of actually what it was like. They had these kind of really deep basements like this, and they'd sort of poke their heads up and there'd be shoes all along here like this, and people would come along and buy them. Like the Morlocks in The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. You know, those underground people, Simon. They live underground. So anyway, it's quite a good bar. I go to Freud's. It's like a cocktail bar.
This is the shop for anybody who's into science fiction and comics and toys.
Oh yeah.
It's Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet.
Used to be on New Oxford Street, didn't it?
Yes, I wouldn't be at all surprised if some of the action figures in there were sculpted by Simon. Have you sculpted any of the things in there?
Maybe.
Sort of thing Simon does. It's quite sad that Arthur Beale, so one of the oldest shops in the whole area, it's been there. I was there for about 500 years, but because of the rising rents and everything, the West End, there's not so much need for them. But they started about 500 years ago selling sailcloth and ropes and stuff like that. In fact, on my Instagram, I think just before they closed down a few months ago, I went in there because they were just having a closing down sale. There was flaxen plants used to grow around this area. Flaxen was used for making the ropes for ships. London was such a major, important port back in the old days.
That's it, isn't it? You've got the Thames and everything.
Tenzing Norgay and Eric Shipton bought their ropes from here before their first ascent of Mount Everest. And a lot of the West End theatres also got their ropes and things here for pulleys and stuff that you need for raising the curtains and things like that. It's a bit, I always find it pretty sad when they close things down. But now they've gone online, you can still buy some nice stuff. I'm gonna get myself a nice, one of those nautical jumpers. Those big thick jumpers there. Yes, look, the Odeon here. This was originally in 1931. This was a theatre called Savills, and actually it was only called Savills because the bloke who designed it didn't want to name it after himself, so he randomly picked a name from the telephone directory, came up with Savills. I suppose if he could go back in time, he'd probably change the name. You wouldn't want your theatre to be connected with someone of that name these days. But anyway, what do you call that? Frieze. This frieze, it won an award by a guy called Gilbert Bay. So that sort of depicts drama through the ages.
So we've got, I see, it goes from the modern age right down to the...
Yeah, Greeks there, gladiators, Imperial Rome. The Beatles manager, Brian Epstein, he used to be the manager here. At one point, yeah. And they used to use it as a pop venue during that time, but then he died in 1960. Well, he killed himself in 1966, and it passed into the hands of his brother, actually.
He was very young as well. So was it a theatre stroke cinema, like they were all built that way back in the day?
Yeah, I think it was a theatre originally, but it only became a cinema in 1970. Let's go around the back.
They're very simple, aren't they? Because obviously you've just got a big screen in there, but you have small offices, you get tiny little windows. They've never changed the window frames. They're all still the old 20s frames, the whatever, from early in the 20th century. Just beautiful. I love it. Nice.
We're just on the end of Earlham Street and Shaftesbury Avenue, and It's one of the few places left in London where you can actually buy records and things. And there's not many. You used to have HMV and Virgin Megastore and stuff. Anyway, you see this place on the corner here? That was in the John le Carré novels, you know, like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and stuff like that. That's where the HQ is, the headquarters of the spy ring. They conduct espionage throughout Great Britain. It's just above there. And do you remember, didn't there used to also be the Limelight? Was it the Limelight or the Slimelight? And there was, in that church next to it, that was the Walkabout. I loved the Walkabout. You could really go and get completely wasted and it wouldn't matter. It was like complete shameless drinking. I used to love it. It was such a great venue. I don't know why they all closed down. It's such a pity. This is, they widened the street. It used to be called Hog Lane, this, back ages ago. But I think to improve access to Charing Cross Station, probably, they widened Charing Cross Road. This is originally it was just the road that led up from Whitehall all the way up to Hampstead. More of a lane, really. I watched Roberto Baggio miss his penalty in the World Cup final upstairs in the Cambridge. I used to go there quite a lot. Oh, showing my age. But just opposite there, look, here at McDonald's, was actually 84 Charing Cross Road. Just after the war, a writer from America called Helen Hemp was trying to order books from this bookseller. And Frank Dole, who was the main buyer for this shop here, he was very helpful to this lady from America who couldn't get English books. And so every time she wrote, he would go and pack up some books and write back. And she'd send food parcels over for the people working in the shop. And they got very friendly after a while. I think there was a hint of romance, but they never actually met in person. Anyway, it was very sad because around like 1968, the letters stopped. She stopped getting letters from him and she wondered what had happened. It turns out he had actually died, but no one told her. And so she came over here around 1971 to come and find out what happened. She stood outside the shop and it was still standing, but all the bookshelves were empty and it had closed down. And she stood here all sad, and it took her a while to find out what had happened to him. But then, obviously, after that, she went on and wrote this book, 84 Charing Cross Road.
And now it's a McDonald's.
Some people think, because there used to be a road here called Little Compton Street, and some people think that it was under the ground here, because through this grate you can see it says Little Compton Street down there. But it's not true. It's just an old utility tunnel. It's just for kind of electricity and sort of cables and stuff like that. But it does show that it served a street which is no longer here, called Little Compton Street. I like that. Look at that, bar salsa. I used to go there for salsa lessons. It's really good fun. I used to love it.
Are you joking, or is that? Seriously, you used to. Seriously, you're serious. You used to do. I'm not saying that's. You know, I don't know if you're joking or not.
What do you mean?
You went for salsa lessons.
I'm going to be on Strictly. I'm telling you. I'm going to be on Strictly.
There you go.
Sooner or later, when I get 1 million subscribers, I should say, Debbie, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Try to get me on Strictly Come Dancing. I'm sure I'm going to get on when I've got 1 million subscribers.
That's Robert Shaw's son.
Is it?
Isn't it? Robert Shaw, Ian Shaw. Isn't that incredible?
That's remarkable. He looks just like him. He looks exactly like Robert Shaw as well. The guy from Jaws.
You got city hands, Hooper. Been counting money all your life.
Back at the end of the 19th century, there was a fellow called Charles Booth who was a social reformer, and he made a map of all the streets in London, and it was kind of a poverty map, and it said what each street was like and everything. And this one, he said that it was a street full of burglars, pickpockets, pimps and prostitutes. And now it's got, well, the Ivy, which is the famous restaurant where lots of celebrities always come and eat. You know, back in the day when I was hanging out with my celebrity friend Woody Harrelson, he had been in a show in the West End with Kyle MacLachlan, the guy from Sex and the City, was he? I think he was in Sex and the City. We were backstage or something, and we said, oh, we're going to this pub with Woody. Are you coming? And he said, no, I'm going to the Ivy. I think he might have been a bit more of a lovey than Woody. Anyway, it was Woody Harrelson who suggested to me, he has seen my films by the way, and it was him who suggested to me that I should be more funny. Hey Jules, he said, hey Jules man, you're a really funny guy. You should be more funny though in your films. That was right at the start when I started doing them.
He knows a thing or two about being successful.
Yeah, and being funny as well. So, so I said, yeah, all right, so I've tried to be funny. So that's, I don't know if I've succeeded. But look, opposite there is the Mousetrap, the Agatha Christie. Look, swing it around, Simon. Look, this is the longest running play in the whole of London. Been there since 1952, can you believe? And I've still never seen it. Have you seen it? I still haven't seen it. I'm going to have to see it at some point. Why don't we go and see it? Come on.
Let's do it now. You sort of match.
Oh, what do you mean I match? Do you think this is the sort of place that would match? A person of my stature should live in a place like this. They are rather nice, aren't they? I think it's this one. Can't remember. I came here many years ago. This used to be Bungee's, where many famous pop stars performed down in the basement. It's a tiny little folk cellar. Bob Dylan definitely performed there. David Bowie, Cat Stevens, Rod Stewart, just in a tiny little basement. Paul Simon. Oh, wow, it's all changed. It's all changed. It's nice. Stage used to be over there. And, of course, let's not forget Little Lost Lou, whose music you can buy on the Joolz Guides website. But just next to there is one of, if not my favourite wine bar in London, Le Beaujolais, which I visited in vintage, Jules.
What would be your favorite tipple? Everybody drinks everything in here, especially what I recommend. So, what about a bottle of Chardonnay from Corsica?
Magnificent.
This young lady of yours will love it.
What will my wife say?
I can never tell her that.
Are you going to get some cheese?
Maybe I'll get the salmon then.
I think I might just get the classic cheese platter.
Like that, those people over
Yeah.
I'm a great cheese model, aren't I? You're wonderful.
Do you come here often?
Yes, we do actually.
Yeah?
Yeah. When we have our little meetups, this is where we come because it's a nice little hidden place. It's a secret, this place, yeah. People can walk right past it the whole time and never see it. And that's the beauty of it, yeah. It's a little bit more civilized, a little bit, yeah.
Civilized, very good word.
Yeah, better atmosphere. That's the beauty of London, it's got its secrets.
That means if you drink to forget, pay before you start to forget.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to you. No swearing.
It's been here for like years and years.
50 years.
50 years.
You're not the proprietor.
I am not. I am not. I'm far too young to be the proprietor.
The thing about the Beaujolais is you never know who you'll meet. You'll meet the Phantom of the Opera, you'll meet a High Court judge. The wine is amazing, the eggs are superb.
The eggs. I like the fact they sell eggs.
That's it, it's an œuf. Un œuf. You say to Pascal, un œuf, s'il vous plaît.
Well,
He will bring you an egg.
An œuf is an œuf.
As they say in France.
I think that must be the parish of St Giles in the Fields, presumably. I mean, that's what it's indicating anyway. SFG, St Giles in the Fields. And now what are we going to do? I guess we can go back up that way and find a pub up the other end of Shaftesbury Avenue. It's amazing, this street. Actually, well, they did used to grow vines down here.
Look how gorgeous everything is here. Look at the buildings. Look, and it's barely used. Hardly anybody walking down here, driving down here. It's just, it's extraordinary.
Now, if you want a really good idea of what shops would have looked like back in Victorian times, this one's been here since 1857. I don't think they've changed it at all. Yeah, so end of Shaftesbury Avenue, there's this lovely little space, and it's just so pleasant. Almost, you can also almost be in a Parisian cafe or something. Look, these buildings here, in the 1930s, there were loads of private detective agencies here, one of which was called Mole and Mole. And you know Cat Stevens? Cat Stevens used to live there. Pint at the Crown, I think. Cheers. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like the videos, and follow me on my Instagram, which is @Joolz Guides Official. And, well, see you next time.